All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to take a look at the information that you're going to need for the upcoming assessments this spring, late winter, early spring. And so we'll start by taking a look at our meeting, and we'll jump in here. If you do have a chat question, you can always ask it via chat. Sarah Wallner will be monitoring that. Otherwise, I will be able to catch up a little bit later. So we'll get started. All right. So welcome, everyone. And again, just remember our purpose of being together is making sure that we can get the best out of everything, ideas from everyone, and working together, asking questions, supporting each other. And today's agenda, we're going to take a look at some updates for Access, which is rapidly coming to a close, and for the MAP assessments. Well, we'll take a look mostly at, most of our time will be on Wisconsin Forward. Then the elementary staff will need to know about a grade 5 assessment that is new, that is called iReady. We'll talk briefly about the climate survey that's coming up, as well as Dane County Youth Assessment, which will be, the climate survey is for both elementary and middle school. DCYA is going to be just for middle school.
Why?
And then, of course, if you have any other questions, please let me know.
Are you making a salad? I just can't hear anything out of here.
Let's get up to date on the Access and where things are at. At this point, we are at January 17th, so we're looking at finishing up. We're in this last box, so testing and completion should be taking place. Probably many of you are thinking about getting done with Access and getting it out of your way. So let's talk a little bit about that and what it is that you're going to need to know and be able to do next week. So from now until February 22nd, some things that are going on. Number one, complete all the testing that you have. All students need to be accounted for, not just those who are tested. So if the student is listed as an English language learner, but does not receive services, they still must be accounted for by the Access assessment. So next week, by the end of next week, you'll receive from Office of Assessment Accountability or Administration, you will receive a list of those students who have not completed all or some of the parts of the Access test. That is for a couple reasons. Number one, it's a reminder that they need to test. And number two is we need to account for all the students. We need to make sure that all the students are either testing or not testing, and if they're not testing, that there is a reason for that. So we'll be asking you to fill out a sheet and tell us why certain students have not tested. So then you get to pack it up and send all paper material to Flum Road, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The deadline by which we need to have everything in our possession is Tuesday, February 6th, 2018. So we need to have all of the paper material, everything completed by the 2nd. It needs to be in our hands by the 6th of February. Okay, some more details. All completed test booklets. So if a student has, especially in elementary, the 1 through 3, the writing booklets are the most common, but the writing booklet could be at any level. Student must have a completed book, and it has to be labeled. Most, I think if not all, students have a sticky label that goes on the cover. But if you don't have that, or it got destroyed, or we had to move books, or they changed schools for whatever reason, we still have to label the booklet. However, keep in mind that bubbling is critical, but not the only thing. There needs to be a sticker, I think it's yellow, that came with all your physical material that should have the school and district name and code on it. So that, at the very least, should go in the place for some kind of a label. All material, once it's done, The physical material needs to be sent to Flum Road. Attention, Sarah Wallner. Please, please, please do not send this before January 29th. Here's the reason. Flum Road gets a lot of things. It's always a coming and going. There are shipments that come in, stuff that goes out every day. Even though these boxes are pretty yellow, they can get lost, and we don't want to have that happen. So beginning on the 29th is when, I think that's Monday the 29th, that's when the staff at Flum Road are beginning to look for those yellow boxes. They'll put them aside in a spot, and we'll go through and check them in and get them out the door. All material, again, must be received by, don't just put it on the truck on the February 6th. We have to have it in our hands on February 6th at Flum Road. So hopefully, if there are any questions, just send us an email about that. If you have difficulties with getting things packed up, sent out, call us. Don't hesitate to call or email us, and we'll get it taken care of. All right, map updates. So, unfortunately, when I got the information that said there was a new Chrome app update, I didn't look carefully enough. And I should have also recognized the fact that it is called something different. The app is out on Chromebooks right now. You've probably experienced it, but it has something like NWA Secure Testing instead of the name of the app in the past, which I think was Map Secure Testing, something along that line. So there is a new app. Just look for it. If it's not there, please let your building tech know. The easiest way to get it to update is simply turn off your Chromebook, power it completely down, and then bring it back up, and it will automatically refresh and update everything that's on it. So if you have students, if you're a one-to-one situation and your students are saying, I don't have that, again, power down, turn it off, power it back up, and it will automatically update with the correct app. Now, here's what's new in the world of map testing. Built into the new app is the ability to set text-to-speech. This particular support and accommodation is wonderful. I'm glad to see it. However, and this is a big however, it's designed for those students who have IEPs that require the test to be read to them. It's not for someone who does not have an IEP or is a struggling reader or just would probably do better having it read to them. It's designed for those students who have IEPs. Now, NWA is just rolling this out currently. Right in the middle of this testing season, they started having this available. So I'm going to suggest a couple things. First of all, it's not foolproof. It is not, the bugs have not been worked out. There have been several days in which NWA has had problems with their text-to-speech. So we are going to fully implement this in the spring. Again, it's to take place of a staff member who is sitting there and reading the test to the student. It is not, should not be anything really new. It will be in mid-February, which is too late for us, but you will, starting then, it will also, you'll be able to see it in the warm-ups, the practice tests. And so you can also find that it, if we look across this, this is what it will look like. Right now, you have a highlighter, an eraser, and a calculator available to you if you're a student. You'll have the speaker and volume, play, not play here is to listen to it, pause it. So there will be many features. That will be available in the spring. Let me back up on that just a second, because there's a small problem with it right now. Not only is it not stable, but it reads both the math test and the reading test. So here is the issue. It will read the directions, it will read the prompt, it will read the answers, answer choices. That's in mathematics. In reading, it will read the directions, the reading passage, the prompt, and the questions. And that just flies in the face of everything that we're trying to test. So we're not using this, even if the student has an IEP, we are not using the text-to-speech portion or reading right now. By the spring, NWA has said to me that they will get this figured out. I think they just went too fast. They pushed it out prior to it actually being tested thoroughly on the assessment for students. So keep in mind that it will read everything. It is only in English, however. So don't expect a Spanish version anytime soon, unfortunately. All right, let's move on. We'll take a look at, wrong way, of course. Let's go back. All right, let's take a look at the Wisconsin Forward exam and some of the updates that are on this right now. First of all, things that are new. There will be new practice exams or sample items available to you and to the staff and to students as well as families. These are already posted on the Forward Coordinators page. There's a link that will be there, and it's ready and operational right now. As we get closer and closer to test date, that's something you may want to consider. 4th and 5th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th all have taken the Wisconsin Forward exam before, so maybe just a short review of how to take this test and how it's different than MAP would be appropriate. 3rd graders, on the other hand, have never taken the Forward test, and while they've taken MAP, they'll have taken that twice. It may or may not be a habit yet. So there will be more, you really should spend a little bit more time with what the exam looks like and some practice questions for 3rd graders more than anyone else. Another change is that we'll be talking about is the text-to-speech and read-aloud change. It's a little bit more restrictive than we've had in the past. And along those same lines, we'll talk about the process for getting supports for English language learners and struggling readers, as well as any other supports and accommodations. We'll also spend a few minutes talking about some of the ticket changes that are taking place this particular year. So let's go into a little bit more detail. If you've been if you've given the Forward exam before, you might recognize this particular structure. But keep in mind that there are tools that are in place for all students, which are called universal tools. Doesn't matter, you don't need an IP, a 504, you don't need to be an English language learner. These are tools that are available to you. And all of these different supports come in 2 different types. So universal tools comes in embedded tools, and that might be an online highlighter. It might be a screen, a text enlarger, a magnifying glass, or non-embedded. So embedded is in the software, non-embedded is something that you provide. So that might be headsets to take away noise distractions. And that's available to everyone. The next level is called a designated support. And a designated support, again, has the 2 types. It will also have, so it's got embedded and it's got non-embedded supports. And these particular supports are there for those students who would most likely need this kind of support. They get these supports in an everyday setting. So things like if you are a struggling reader, you might have somebody who points out a word to you or helps you with a sentence every once in a while or on a regular basis. And so text-to-speech may or may not be appropriate for you. For those students who are English language learners, a word-to-word dictionary. If that's something that you use every day on a regular basis, then it's a possibility for a designated support for the test. Now that would be non-embedded since the dictionary is not in the computer software. Finally, we have accommodations, which are those that require an IEP or a 504. Has to be one of the 2. And that particular piece, we again have embedded and non-embedded options. The text Video sign language is an example of an accommodation. Text-to-speech, and we'll talk about this in a moment, is reserved for a very few number of students who would typically need to have some kind of a braille, might be the example. Okay, let's see if we can move, if I can get this to move forward and go on to the next slide. All right, and of course I have my, let's clear that. All right, so here we go. The universal tools are always on. We don't have to request them. Embedded versus non-embedded. Designated supports. Now these are based on teacher recommendation. And my biggest concern is that we do not provide these types of supports for students just because, wow, they might need it. If it's something that's used regularly every day or every week in the classroom and the student is comfortable using it, then please go ahead and we can use that as a designated support. Here's an example of a non-embedded designated support. Small group setting. So you know that students work better or will test better when there's only a couple students around them so they aren't distracted. That is a non-embedded designated support. The teacher would recommend that. We need to know that, however. And we'll talk about that list in just a moment. Finally, accommodations. Again, the only way you can get those are through an IEP or a 504. And just because it's in the IEP, if it is never used, again, I would ask, why is it in the IEP? If it's used by in the regular instruction of the students, for instance, they get extended time on a test. That would be an example of an accommodation. Even though the forward test is not timed, that would be a regularly used accommodation for that student. Okay. Now, one of the things I mentioned was earlier, you may want to get students who've taken MAP but never seen the forward exam, some things to find out what's different. And here is an example of things that are different, especially when it comes to supports and accommodations. Forward and MAP. In forward, there are 3 levels and of supports and accommodations, embedded, non-embedded. It does require more time for us to prepare, us meaning Sarah and myself, prepare for the forward test than it does for MAP testing. Student information is going to be loaded into eDirect. That's the name of the software from DRC. It's very similar to AMS, so if you've used that, you will be just fine with eDirect. We need to get information in there into eDirect prior to any printing of tickets. We will be printing and distributing tickets to you so that you can avoid the large scale printing of tickets. But we need to have all the information that goes behind the scenes first. So here's the process. On or about February 1st, Sarah is going to be pulling information from OASIS, getting the accommodations and supports for those students who have IEPs and 504s. We're putting that into a Google Doc, or Google Sheet, excuse me. We will be sharing that with you, like I said, on or about February 1st. And really, for those students who have accommodations whose IEP is up to date in OASIS, you don't have to do anything. You can share it with staff to have them check it. Yes, 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 this is what we said. There are a couple cases in which we always have this. There is an open IEP, which means there's no data in OASIS. If that's the case, again, we understand that. We just need to make sure we know what are the appropriate accommodations or supports to place into the software. So you'll need to get this list back to us no later than, I believe, the 19th of February, somewhere in that. You'll have a good 2.5 weeks to get this done. Also on that Google sheet, we'll need to put information from, must come to us from you about ELL supports. Now, while we can get a list of your English language learners, we don't know what are the supports that are appropriate for each one of them. Finally, what will be on that list will be if we need to have put in the designated supports for struggling readers, which is text-to-speech, that must be on the Google Sheet as well. All right, let's move ahead. So here's what it will have. Excuse me. You don't have to add the list of ELLs. They will be on the sheet, levels 1 through 5, your school. So you can list the appropriate supports. There will be choices there for you to put a little check in the box to say, yes, they should get this and not this. So you'll need to work with your grade level teams to, work with your grade level teams to determine what's appropriate. Add the struggling readers, and excuse me, it's the 16th, and that needs to be back to us. Okay. Talked briefly about the practice test and the sample items. These are online right now. You can connect through the OAA assessment website. This is what it looks like. We've got online tool training. So essentially it's saying, here, this is what this tool is, try it out. And these are item samples. There's a password that is found if you log in or you click this, it'll give you the password. It is also grade specific. Finally, I know that there was a video that has been used in the past to orient students, especially the younger students, and that assessment tutorial is found here at the bottom, the online assessment tutorials. Please keep in mind that this works best in Chrome. I don't think that's an issue in the district, but I'll be posting this for everyone, including the public and families, to go and try this out so they can see this, and I will make sure that they understand that that's the browser of choice. Okay, let's talk about text-to-speech and English language learners. That text-to-speech, if you provide this or say this is what's appropriate for English language learners or struggling readers, in the reading test, the reading portion of forward, the text-to-speech will read the directions, the questions, and the answers for all the tests except for session 4 reading passages. Remember, there are 4 sessions to the English language arts portion of the test, and there is 1 session that is designed specifically to see student comprehension of what they read. And so they will be reading that, and it will not work in that particular session. All other sessions, text-to-speech will work. That's for designated supports. Again, all it takes is a teacher recommendation and classroom practice to be able to use that. The accommodations, however, it will read the entire passage. However, the interpretation is this is only for visually impaired students who are not proficient in contracted Braille. And the list of students who fit that particular description is extremely small within our district. You may have a student who is like this, and we'll make sure that everyone is agreed upon the fact that they get text-to-speech, but it's, again, a very small number of students. We're working closely with student services to ensure that this is done correctly.
Yeah.
We're also working closely with OMGE to make sure that any questions about English learners is also handled consistently across the board.
I'm listening to a webinar.
All right, get to the end of the forward test.
You know, I think it shouldn't take.
So here are some potential changes. This is a sample of tickets that were sent to us from the vendor, just saying,
okay. So
actually, because of the work that we do behind the scenes,
who are not done with
they
that.
kind of owed us a favor, and I took the information that came from you guys, from your suggestions, and said, here is what we would really like. We would like, number 1, more space between the tickets, because when we cut them up, we want to have, it gets really messy, and if you use a paper cutters, it cuts all askew. So here's what they did. Number 1, as you can see, they moved the Here, I'll point it out for you. They move the password a little higher on the page so that it will not get cut off. They also have listed all the accommodations for students, both the embedded and non-embedded. So magnification as a designated support, masking. Each one of these has in fact, sorry, I don't have them memorized, but each one of these will get a cheat sheet out to everyone so that you can look at it and say, oh yeah, I get it, small setting. So SS, small setting, small group setting. So they were able to do all that. That's really nice, but I personally wouldn't call this a whole lot of space in here. So they tried, they said, well, we put more quote unquote padding around it, which is nice. I appreciate the effort, but the bottom line is it is not where we want it to be, and we'll continue to push on them to get these tickets to be something that's a little bit more doable. It still doesn't matter if you take 4 sheets of paper or 6 sheets of paper and use a paper cutter and cut it all up, you still have to sort through these one by one. I apologize, but that's the best we can do at this moment. We will be printing them for you on different colored sheets of paper so that that corresponds with the different sessions, the different content areas of the test. Remembering that 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 7th has an ELA in mathematics. 4th and 8th has, besides ELA and mathematics, you'll have social studies and science as well. All right, let me clear this off before we move on. Maybe, sorry about that. All right. So the accommodation codes will be on the tickets, and we'll get you a support sheet for that. There's also a guide that's out there right now. It's on our website. It is brand new for 2018. It's called the Accessibility Guide, and it has all this information in it. It has request forms for text-to-speech accommodation forms. It's got everything else that you possibly could use about supports and accommodations. All right, so this next section is specifically for elementary schools. We'll jump back to middle school information in just a moment. This is, I think, about 4 or 5 slides. We're going to talk about iReady Mathematics. We'll spend briefly some time talking about the purpose, what information it provides, the timeline for this. And this window is a short window, as it is one test for 5th grade only, but it is something that we need to be prepared for. So what is it? iReady is similar to MAP. It is computer-based and adaptive. We will only be testing grade 5, and it will take approximately 60 minutes. It might take a little bit more, again, since it's not timed. Here is the reason why we're giving the iReady for 5th grade students. There's a couple reasons. Number one, as they are preparing to go into middle school, the appropriate math courses are becoming very critical. Which pathway do you take? I know that's not the correct language, but which route do you take through middle school mathematics? And this is one of the 3 pieces of information that is used by the middle schools, as well as in support of data gathering, the curriculum and instruction math team downtown that they use in order to get the correct decision made. iReady is a much more focused assessment than MAP. It provides much greater detail about the strengths and weaknesses of students in different areas of mathematics. And so it's important that this data is looked at in trying to get the student into the right route through middle school math. there are three things that are going to be used. Number one is the teacher recommendation. So all fifth grade teachers will be receiving a spreadsheet, a Google sheet, that they will need to say 1, 2, or 3. Here's where the student is. And there'll be directions on that. It'll be coming from C&I mathematics team. So teacher recommendation, I recommend it. I recommend not doing this. It could go either way. The second piece of information for making the decisions about a student going into middle school math and which route they take is mathematics assessment. So yes, the math assessment does count. And the third leg of this stool is the iReady math. So really try to use 3 different pieces of information. One is a test that is a fairly broad test, one that is really focused, and then teacher recommendation. So the different routes that students will take depend on 2 of those 3 aligning. And so I'll let the C&I math team provide more information when it's time. So here's what it is. It's used for 6th grade math placement. The data about that transition is really critical to make sure that students are in the right place. And it will also provide teachers in 5th grade with usable information. The turnaround is within 24 to 48 hours to get that information back. 6th grade teachers will be able to look back and say, this is what my students' data shows me with great specificity. So it's the math team is looking forward to it. At the building level, what do you need? You will need to, first of all, schedule a test. So all 5th grade students need to take this particular assessment. You will need to have tickets, and those will be provided for you. It simply has a login. This is an online assessment. The login, actually, if I go back, the login looks like this. So this is taken from the login page. You'll need headphones because all the questions at grade 5 level and below can be and could be read by the computer to the students. The questions, the background information, the directions, the prompts, the items, the questions, the answers, everything. This is also important for English language learners. You can have that read to you in English by the computer. So headphones are important. Students will need scratch paper and something to write with. Finally, let me go back. Sorry about that. Okay. Finally, you'll need to have a place for appropriate accommodation. So again, think about the testing group, the small spaces, small groups, etc. Talked about the audio for grades 5 and lower, those level questions. If you go up, so if you are a grade, you're really a strong math student, you will go up in difficulty since this is adaptive. And at grade 6 and above, it will not read the questions. It will not read anything to you. You're a student who is on grade level and just above, so you might go 5th grade, 6th grade, 6th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade. You will have some questions that are read and some that are not. English language learners can have all the questions translated as long as they are grade 5 questions and below. It can be read only to them, no conversation about what does that word mean, what are they asking me to do, etc. Just the questions can be translated for grades level 5 and below. Having troubles today getting this to go in the right direction. All right. Tickets will be sent to each school with login information. We have information available currently on our website, and I'll be sending that out to everyone with how-tos, how to get the data, how to log students in, troubleshooting, etc. Now, typically in the past, you have been reading, if you have a new student arrive, you send an email to either Sarah or myself. We put them in the system and good to go. this bypasses that whole process. So what we have is when students are enrolled in IC, that evening, at night, there's an automatic upload from IC to the iReady servers. The following morning, your student who arrived yesterday will be ready to be tested. So we'll make sure that we get that shared with everyone as to how to get tickets to log in, etc. But keep in mind that even though, I mean, you could tell us, Sarah and I, all you want, all those new students, we have no way of uploading it. It has to take overnight. We can't make it go any faster. The results. Results are available immediately for teachers. Different than MAP, students will not see their own results right away. It won't show that, oh, you scored a 475. This is different than MAP. We will be sending out results to families prior to spring break. So everybody should have that information available to them somewhere around spring break time. The inevitable question is, can my student opt out? The answer is yes, they can. Same process. They need to write this or email it. Now, please keep in mind that this is one of those 3 data points that are used for MAP placement in middle school. If you suddenly remove one of them, or let's say that the student opted out of MAP testing, and they're going to opt out of iReady, that only leaves the teacher recommendation. That doesn't leave a lot of data for discussion about, is the student ready? So we're not forcing people to do anything. I just want to make sure you understand what the implications are for opting out of both the MAP and the iReady test. If anybody has any questions, parents, please have them give me a call. All right, finally, let's move on. We have updated our pages, given, let's see, is this, I'm not sure. You know what? This might be that was an old slide. So let's talk about the Student Climate Survey. Grades 3 and up, every student is asked to have the chance to complete the survey. It will be available only on a link. We're getting it put on, this is last year's image. We're having it put onto the LibGuides just like we did last year, so a student can log in, click, take the survey. It takes roughly a half an hour to complete. And it is, when you log in, this is what it looks like. Again, last year's, it's available in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Hmong. So everything has been translated. Keep in mind, especially as students get older, they get more worried about this, but this is not an anonymous survey. This is a confidential survey. So the students are asked, as you can see, if you can see here, they're asked to enter their student ID number. Here's what that is used for. That is only used for making sure that we have the demographics correct, and that's about it. There is no effort, there's so many answers, so much information here that we can't dig through it fast enough. So nobody is connecting this student with this response other than through the demographics. So that's all about the student survey, climate survey. Now, also going on for grades 7 and up is the every 3 years Dane County Youth Assessment. This is a very important survey. It's only, again, will only be available via link. We'll put this on the LMC, the LibGuide page. There will be a letter home that is school specific, so we'll get that information to you so you can create and finalize the information that's in it. Dane County Youth Assessment is used for by multiple agencies within the county to go after grants. It's used by schools to go after grants. It is a very important piece that provides services for your students that aren't necessarily seen every day in the class. So it is something that we want to take seriously. Let me go back. first of all, the window on both of these is February 5th through I think it's the 25th. So it's the end of February. Let me quick take a look here. Yeah, it'll be on the survey, the LibGuides connection, the link. So last year was the 6th of February through the 24th. This year, I believe it's the 5th through the 23rd. So you have about 3 weeks. Student climate survey, every student is to be given an opportunity to take the survey. So it's 100% is the goal. On the Dane County Youth Assessment, 50% is the goal here. And so you need to kind of think about how are we going to get 50% of our 7th graders to take the survey. And so it might be in a specific class, might be in the science class. And so in the science class, you're going to take 30 minutes and do the assessment. You may have a homeroom time that you're going to take 30 minutes and do the assessment. It needs to be done at each of the schools and determine there how are you going to figure out how you're going to do that. That more information will be coming out shortly, and we will also have this on a web page so that you have information for you. The links for the Dane County Youth Assessment are school specific. The link for the climate survey is also school specific, but that'll all be hidden behind on the LibGuide. With the climate survey, we will be sending out information like definitions, scripts for proctors, etc. So all of that information that we've done in the past, we'll send out. Same thing with the Dane County Youth Assessment. Everything that you need will be there to support students as they take this. And then finally, I think we've covered everything. If you do have questions, please make sure that you email either myself or Sarah. Our phone numbers are here as well. So if you have the opportunity, please let us know how we're doing, and we'll see you in the near future. Thank you.